Well, let's start with this. We know this to be true in all sports. There are very few great owners. There are very few great front offices and very few great players. We know that. That's empirically true. We all know that. I've been talking about watching Winning Time on HBO. It's based on Jeff Pearlman's amazing book about the purchase of the Lakers by the late Jerry Buss, a maverick, just a unique all-time sports character. And since he has passed, it is not the same organization. They can't even forget hiring coaches. They can't get firing coaches right. Frank Vogel found out he's been fired as the Laker coach through a tweet by an NBA reporter. So as a sports fan, sometimes a great owner passes, hands it to kids, it's never the same. And then sometimes an owner is really over his or her skis, and you wish they would go away. They pass, and you benefit from it. And let me give you a couple examples of this. Let's start with the Lakers. This team is not about Frank Vogel. They use 41 different lineups this year. He didn't want Russell Westbrook. He got Russell Westbrook. Stories out this weekend in the LA Times. Westbrook was disrespectful, disingenuous, and a disaster for the Lakers. But don't forget, pre-Vogel, in Kobe's last year, if you take the last game Kobe ever played as a Laker, and the previous 5 years to that, they had the worst winning percentage in the league. This has been a mess for a long time. In fact, in the last 11 years, if you take out the bubble, the pandemic season, which was a weird break for one team in the NBA, the Lakers, because old LeBron and brittle Anthony Davis got a 4-month break in the middle of the season. You take out the bubble season, the Lakers have won in 11 years, 41% of their games, and have had 6 head coaches in 11 years. This is not a Vogel issue. Maybe it is a Google issue. This is a systemic front office ownership mess. 1 playoff series win in 11 years, take out the bubble year, 41% of games they've won. They increasingly bring in old players with big names to make it relevant. Who is that? That's the Raiders in the last 11 years with Al Davis. What did the Raiders do in the last 11 years before Mark Davis, who appears to be much more, let's be honest, in the last couple years, much more capable? Say what you want about him. You don't like his haircut. He's more capable. What were the Raiders and the current Lakers like? Well, in those last 11 years with Al Davis, they won 40% of their games. They had a front office, too many friends of Al Davis. They had a lot of bad draft picks. They were bringing in people like Randy Moss to remain relevant. Like the Lakers are bringing in Dwight Howard or Carmelo or Russell Westbrook to make them relevant. So they sound big on paper, and then they're terrible on the floor. This is what it's become. Diehard fan bases, one in Los Angeles, one in Vegas, Oakland, and Los Angeles, the Raiders. Great fans clinging to tarnished, dying brands. But don't let that pandemic season get in the way. 11 years, 6 head coaches, you're winning about 40% of your games. And like Al Davis's Raiders at the end, you're bringing in big names so you can sell tickets. It looks great on paper, but then you hand it to a coach and there's nothing he can do with it. This is not a quick turnaround. As the NFL exploded in revenue, the Raiders never seem to have enough of it. And as the NBA is exploding into a global game, Lakers sort of feel like an outdated local general store. Sad, but that's exactly what the Lakers have become. Forget hiring the next coach. They couldn't even fire Frank Vogel with dignity. So this next story is fascinating. I didn't buy it initially. I thought it was a bunch of rumors and innuendo. It appears to be a real bombshell. So, Tom Brady's the most detailed professional athlete of anybody's life, my life, your life. So when he retired and then unretired, it made no sense. And then Bruce Arians, who never showed any inclination to work upstairs in a cubicle in the front office, was moved upstairs. Ben Volen, Boston Globe, detailing this wild story and what really happened. And we told you, Joy is my witness, we told you, I can't wait for the story behind the story because I don't buy any of this PR nonsense where Brady returns after retiring and, oh, Bruce Arians, Instagram, I love you. Nonsense. And the Bruce Arians, oh, I was going to retire anyway. Now we know the rest of the story. Essentially, Brady has had a relationship for 20 years with Sean Payton, the coach of the Saints, former coach of the Saints. They have the same agent, a guy I know and like a lot, Don Yee. They were going to go to Miami, and Brady was going to be part owner. He would only go if he got a legitimate veteran coach, and it was going to be Sean Payton. And then the Brian Flores situation happened, the lawsuit against the Dolphins and other teams, racial discrimination. Brady and Payton said, we're not going to go here now. It's just a mess. Remember, the owner of the Dolphins, Stephen Ross, is a Michigan alum and booster, and Brady went to Michigan, so they're close. So the story's true now. Rich Ohrnberger, who's a regular guest on our show, had tweeted, and now we know it's true, that Arians and Brady had their issues. It was not great. There was tumult and turbulence in the entire relationship, and Brady was ready to bolt. And here's a curveball that's been added. So when Brady in the Miami situation imploded, right? Brady suddenly, we all saw this, right? He was suddenly over at an English Premier League game, Manchester United. That was weird, right? We'd never seen him there in 20, 25 years. Oh, now we know why, according to Ben Volen, Boston Globe. They're owned by the Glazer family, who owns the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady flew over, met with the Glazer family. Listen, I'll come back. Here's the story, but you got to make a couple of changes upstairs. And suddenly Tom unretires and Bruce Arians moves upstairs virtually on the same day. We don't believe it was happenstance or coincidence because I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do not believe in coincidences. For our Seattle listeners, I'm not a conspiracy guy. I don't wear tinfoil hats. But in this instance, you can put the things together now. We know it to be true. Is that Brady basically had a deal to go to the Miami Dolphins, like a Derek Jeter to the Marlins, be an owner, maybe quarterback for a year. Sean Payton comes over. They take it over. We know the Dolphins wanted to pivot to an offensive coach because they hired an offensive coach from the 49ers, and you and I know they would have hired Sean Payton before the young guy they hired from the 49ers with no head coaching experience. So it was all in the works. Then the lawsuit, and not a shock, the Dolphins screwed it up because the Dolphins screw everything up. And that's the way, I started talking about this 10 minutes ago. There's very few great owners, great executive front offices, great quarterbacks. In Seattle right now, you're dealing with Paul Allen passed. They don't draft well. Russell's gone. Good luck, Seahawks. So the story is out. It's official. And just be very careful about buying into PR nonsense. In this, once you have a Ronaldo, a Messi, once you have a Brady, a Russell Wilson, a LeBron, when you have somebody that big, the team will always take the hit. The star never does. That's the way it works. Why? Because you want to get a next star if that star's leaving. Right? If the Seahawks want the next great quarterback in free agency, they don't want to dog Russell Wilson, and other people go, look at that owner, look at that organization. They don't treat their athletes well. So it's all about brand protection for the Bradys and the LeBrons. Right? By the way, as the Lakers implode here, you know who's never around? LeBron. When David Blatt got fired by the Cavaliers years ago, LeBron's quote was, oh boy, I was surprised. Surprised by what? It happened today and not yesterday? You're the guy that ran him out. But Dan Gilbert knew he had to take the hit. He was not going to dump it on his star player because star players, especially in the NBA, have huge leverage with other star players. They couple up, they join forces. So we're getting more clarity now on this story. It is absolutely fascinating. And as we predicted, it's not that Arians and Brady are enemies. Nobody is suggesting that. Nobody's suggesting they shoved him upstairs, but they nudged him. That appears to be the case. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.